guys, welcome back to another episode of Diaries of a Working Couple. I'm Jamie.
And I'm Chris.
And baby tiger sharks, well, not baby tiger sharks, but unborn tiger sharks will attack each other in their mother's womb.
Interesting.
Isn't that a little terrifying?
That is, yeah.
Like baby tiger sharks, before they're even born, if there is more than one of them in the womb, they will start attacking each other.
That's a little scary.
That's gotta also be very uncomfortable for the mom.
Yeah. Probably low possibilities of multiple children if they're going to fight and kill each other.
I would assume so, but I didn't look that far into it to...
That fact was a little more crude, too.
It was a little jarring when I learned it, so I thought it would might jar some other people as well.
Not as much fun as the
fluffle.
The fluffle.
I know.
Yeah. It's okay.
Well, listen, it was either that or the fun fact of you don't get goosebumps on your face.
That's interesting. I never thought about that.
I didn't either. Would you like to know why, or do you not want to know why?
Sure. Is there an interesting reason why?
I mean, it's not like super interesting unless you're interested in it. Like if you're not interested in like the body and the science part of it, it's not really that interesting. But I thought it was cool because the reason we get goosebumps is we have a muscle that constricts, and when the muscle constricts and pulls our skin tighter, the hair follicles are spread out, and that's what stands up. That's where the goosebumps come from. So when that muscle constricts, you have the bumps of the hair follicle because of how they're spread out.
Interesting.
Now on our face, our hair follicles are much closer together. So even if that muscle does constrict, there's not enough space between the hair follicles to create the divots that would make the follicle much more pronounced.
Interesting. The more you know.
The more you know. But yeah, listen, I was really toying today with a bunch of different random facts, and none of them really seemed good.
Well, we've been doing this for about 3 or 4 episodes now, so it's a bit early to start running out of good ideas.
It's not that I ran out of them. I'm just trying to find good, interesting ones. Like, there are a bunch of random ones that I'm like, meh.
Anyway, so at the time of us recording this now, it is a little bit after Labor Day.
That it is.
And over the weekend, we tried a recipe that was sent in by Lucia.
Yes, thank you, Lucia. It was a sauce that is like a steak sauce almost. I know you can put it over other things, but the recipe she sent us included steaks. She said, cook the steaks, make this sauce. You can warm the steaks up back in the sauce if you cook the steaks first, but this is how you have it. So we tried it, and it was delightful. Lucia, we did put a reel out about it, and then Lucia messaged us saying that was the first time she ever messaged a podcaster. And so we are very glad to be her first message to a podcaster.
Yeah.
And she is also our first recipe that we've tried here on the show.
And it was super good.
It was surprisingly really good. And Lucia, don't take offense to this, but when it said put mustard in the sauce, I was very concerned. Very, very concerned.
Yeah, so do you want to give like a little overview of what the sauce was?
So, no, it is Lucia's secret sauce.
Oh,
but
it's a secret.
No, I don't think it's a secret. But no, it is a lot of butter, shallot, which is a tiny onion. Chris was very concerned when I was cutting it up. He's like, why are you crying? Is everything okay? I said, the onion.
Yeah, our slap chop is broken, and that's mostly because of me.
It's okay. I don't mind cutting it up by hand. So I diced that up, and it said smashed garlic. I had chopped garlic, so I just threw that in there. And then once that gets all nice and golden brown, you throw in Worcestershire sauce.
Nobody knows how to say that.
I'm
So
sure someone knows how to say it, like the guy who invented it,
maybe.
however, or the guy who named it, but I just call it Worcestershire sauce. I think it's Worcestershire sauce is technically how you're supposed to say it,
I don't know.
but I'm just going to go with Worcestershire sauce and Dijon mustard. And then you threw more butter in and just whisked it all up until
Yeah.
it thickened. And I was very surprised because as I kept cooking it, the smell of the mustard was just very odorous. It was very dominant. And I was like, this is just going to taste like straight mustard. And I don't think that's going to go well with steak. And it's freaking me out because I also don't really like mustard. Dijon mustard is better than yellow mustard, but
Well, as somebody who wasn't paying attention to the person that was making the sauce, I thought it smelled pretty good when it was in the pan.
it smelled good. But I would just get these wafts of like straight mustard. And I was like, oh, what's going to happen? But it was delightful. It was a little tang to the steaks. And shout out to Chris for making the steaks. He sous vide them and then seared them in our skillet, our cast iron skillet.
Yeah, the instructions that Lucia sent had very minimal detail on the steak because it was more about the sauce.
Yeah,
so
you
it
just-
just said to like grill the steak. I prefer to use the sous vide to make a steak
He
because
fancy.
no, because I am not very good at cooking or grilling, and I rather just have the steak temperature be perfect than for me to guess and mess it up somehow. So to give the recipe the most chance, I gotta take out all the user error variables.
I do have to say, you've gotten very, very good at rendering the fat cap for whatever steak we have. I got some sort of strip, but it wasn't like the New York strip.
No, it was a sirloin.
Was it a sirloin?
Yeah.
I don't know. I tried to get one that didn't have a huge fat cap on it, but it still had like some fatty pieces on it.
Yeah, so now that I dialed in the temperature for the sous vide, that renders everything that's like internal in the steak, and then the large fat cap, you just have to make sure that you sear it for 30 or 45 seconds, and then
And it just melts. It is delightful.
See, I had a larger fat cap on my steak, and I did not sear it long enough, so like when I got to the really thick parts, there was still some chewy parts in there. But I'm getting there.
Mine just melted.
I'm getting there.
You did very well. I'm proud of you, dear.
Yeah, so that was super good. And then on Monday,
Pause. I love you. Pause. If anyone else has any recipes that they want to send in, please send them in to diariesofaworkingcouple@gmail.com or slide into our DMs on Instagram @diariesofaworkingcouple. Okay, play.
all right. So I was just gonna say that we went to my parents on Monday, and we had like a small Labor Day party with a bunch of the fam.
I don't know if I would call it small. Like it is small in terms of parties in general, but I think that was the largest party that your mom has hosted since COVID.
Maybe there was
Other outside of my bridal shower.
Yeah, there was 4, 6, 8.
Because-
There was probably 12 people total.
And normally when your mom hosts party, at least recently with COVID and everything, it's usually your brother and Sydney, your parents, us, mom and pop-up, and then usually Eileen and Mary.
Yeah.
I think that's usually like where it caps. I couldn't tell you the last time. Before this, I couldn't tell you the last time I'd seen Mike and Delphina. Like Mike would pop by on occasion, but usually Delphina doesn't stop by. She's usually feeling under the weather. So I think this is the first time I've seen them, and when Aunt Barb and Uncle Jim came over too. Like I feel like it's just been a very long time since we've had that many people together, and it was a blast. I loved it. But I feel like that's the largest party we've had in a long time.
Yeah, it was super fun. And we got pull out the Can Jam setup finally.
Yeah, that was the first time we pulled out the Can Jam since was it last year? This past year that I gave it to you? This past
You gave it
Christmas?
to me this year. We were in the house.
In the house? Okay.
Yeah.
So it was our only Christmas in the house.
Yes. Yeah. We only had one Christmas in the house. Yes, that is
Yes.
right. Yeah, so we got to pull out the Can Jam setup. My dad is surprisingly good at Can Jam.
I don't.
Or at least the throwing of the frisbee part.
It blows my mind because he has the most unorthodox way of throwing it, but it's just so smooth.
Yeah, he does like this weird behind the back kind of movement with his arm, but either way it ends up with him just flicking his wrist and it just smoothly flies through the air. Barry was struggling when he was playing with you and the first few games he played with Mike. I was a little surprised because I've played Can Jam with him before, and he never struggled like that. But in the last few games, he finally dialed it in, and him and Mike ended up taking the championship.
Like I said, when we were playing you guys, we were just dialing it in. He just had a little more time to dial it in than I did.
Yeah, for sure.
But that was a lot of fun.
Also this weekend was the Disc Golf World Championships. And I just want to say Paul McBeth and Kristen Tatar totally deserve those wins. They are beasts. That is all.
It was interesting. I don't know. Did I get there to watch Macbeth at the end, or was that a replay? Because I know that was Saturday, I think it was, because everyone was watching it while I was at work.
Yeah, but the FPO or the women start in the morning. And when you got home, it was like hole 16 of the MPO.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's like right when the excitement started to really build.
Yeah. Well, that's because it was stolen from him last year. Well, not stolen, but like.
The Holy Shot, which if you at all have an interest in disc golf, then you have to look it up if you've never seen it before. But James Conrad had a throw in from, I don't know, like 250 plus to tie it up in the on the last hole of the World Championship, and then he ended up winning the World Championship that year over Paul McBeth.
What do they call it? Playoff? Extra holes?
Yeah, it was an extra holes or playoffs, which they also went to playoff holes this year, and eventually Paul McBeth took it.
Yeah.
So we don't have to talk about that anymore, but I just like to shout them out because they are beasts.
Do you not like talking about disc golf?
I do, but I could sit here and talk the whole time about it. So.
You're right. But you did also put up that rack in the garage. You 3D printed a rack for all of your extra discs.
I did. I 3D printed some mounts that went on the wall, and then I used some PVC pipe to connect those, and it makes a nice little clean rack to put all my extra discs that aren't in my bag.
Yes, it's mounted right above a lovely picture of some mountains that is hanging in our garage that was kindly left here by our previous owners.
Yeah, it came with the house, and we're letting that legacy live for probably the next few months until I see it and tear it down.
That picture kind of reminds me of the clown picture from The Office in the house that Jim bought.
Oh, yeah.
That's somehow
part of the structure of the wall.
Integral to the structure of the house.
Yeah. I was going to stop bantering, but I did want to bring up that you've been playing this house flipping simulator a lot recently.
You're right, because I can go in about this. I feel like we should save that for the next episode, because I do love that game.
Okay. All right. We'll talk about it next week.
But this week we wanted to talk about, family holiday parties, because we just had Labor Day, and it got me thinking, because my family never really did anything for holidays that weren't the big three. When I say big three, I mean Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter. Those are what we call or what I would consider the big three for our family. Even for New Year's, 4th of July, anything like that. There was a time where we would go over to friends' houses for parties, but we never hosted. And then once like if those friends weren't having anything, we maybe just had grandma and pa over for like a cookout or like game night, and that was about it. We never did anything big, even for like New Year's.
I feel like every time that there's a day where we get off of work, my parents will have some type of barbecue or something at their house. So like things like I don't know if we get off for like President's Day anymore, but I feel like things like that where we would get a day off for work, you know, it might not be a lot of people, but maybe just like Mo and Pop Up and like the kids and maybe Mike.
Yeah, I feel like every, and I don't want to call them holidays, but you're right. Anytime you guys got a day off of work, Memorial Day, Labor Day, 4th of July, I feel like even for New Year's, they probably had something or did something. I don't know what they normally do for New Year's. But yeah, they always had like cookouts and
Are you talking about my parents?
yeah, your parents.
Yeah, yeah. For New Year's, actually, the most recent New Year's, they really haven't done anything.
Okay, pre-COVID. I know COVID
Yeah.
has thrown
So
everything off.
I know that we used to have New Year's parties where we used to launch fireworks. My dad had like a 5-gallon bucket that was filled with concrete and a launch pipe, and you could put mortars in there and launch them up.
I was gonna say you're talking about the big fireworks.
Yeah, well, so like that's like kind of normal for some states in the United States, but Pennsylvania specifically, had a ban on fireworks for a very long time. I think it was lifted recently within the last year or two, but
Really?
we
'Cause-
used to have to go like down to Maryland to buy fireworks. The
See,
only
that's-
thing you could have were like bottle rockets and stuff here, things that didn't go over a certain
That's
amount of feet.
interesting because I thought we had to go up to Pennsylvania to get fireworks growing
Well,
up.
I slightly remember my dad saying that Uncle Jim used to bring some up.
I wonder if Uncle Jim would just stop on his way up to get them.
Possibly.
Because I remember
You weren't going to Pennsylvania to get them, though.
I could have sworn we had to. This makes me want to call my mom right now and ask her.
It's fine. We will figure out later.
We will table this and bring this up later on because
Eventually
I could
we
have
will-
sworn we had to go to Pennsylvania to get them because Mr. Andy would always take his massive truck because they had the house on the Chesapeake Bay and they always had big parties. And so every 4th of July and every New Year's, we would set off those big fireworks off the dock on their house. But we always had, well, not we. I never went. But I think it was always him and Chris and Kim maybe. But they always went to go get fireworks. But they had to go somewhere else to get it. And then they would drive back because they'd pack his like big, what was it, Yukon that he had or whatever, full of fireworks. And then someone always caught fire. I know. I'm sorry. If you guys could hear our Alexa alarm going off, it's a reminder that we have to take out trash because we're recording this on trash night.
And we already took it out, which is very surprising. We're
Okay.
not typically that proactive about it.
Side note, I'm pretty sure there's a competition in our neighborhood of who can put out their trash cans the earliest.
I know.
It's
Anyway,
very strange.
I was going to mention, though, when you said that like we should call your mom, eventually we will get to the point where we're just going to start calling people during the podcast. And if you are listening and you know us personally,
Prepare yourselves.
Get your phones ready because we're going to be calling you.
Yes, we will be calling you. I will, if it's someone I talk to, we will check in with you first to make sure it's okay. And we will also, when we call you, we will preface it by saying, "This is for the podcast. Watch what you say."
Yeah. But anyway, so we were talking about Labor Day, or not Labor Day, 4th of July,
Fireworks.
fireworks. Yeah.
I swear. Anyway. But yeah, so our friends growing up, they had, like I said, they had this big house on the bay and they would always go and get like a massive amount of fireworks. And my brother, well, one of my brothers Not both of them. Only Zach would go down and light them off. But it was always friends that we had growing up, and they all would go down to the pier and start shooting off fireworks. And without fail, someone caught fire, I believe, just about every party.
What do you mean by caught fire?
We'd have the fireworks, like one would fall over to the side and like catch someone's sweater on or like their jacket on fire, and or it would shoot towards someone and they're falling into the bay, which on their pier you fall into about like maybe 1.5 feet, 2 feet of water. It's not real deep. But literally at one point our one friend Michael started, so him and one of our other friends that were there, Calvin, they were setting off fireworks. One caught, it was a New Year's party because Calvin had like jeans and like a hoodie on or whatever, and Michael just starts hitting him, and he turns around and he's like, "Why are you hitting me?" And Michael's like, "You're on fire." And so he had some singe marks on his sweatshirt. Yeah.
Interesting. We didn't really have any struggles like that.
Yeah, no, one of I think at one point it was one of those like really like, I don't want to say a lot, but it wasn't one just those big like colorful fireworks. It was one of those pop 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 kind of ones that fell over and really scorched up the pier.
Man, you could see some very crazy videos of people setting off fireworks on YouTube, and just how reckless some people are.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like full car explosions from it, like just sending a mortar right under into the side of a car. It's crazy.
Like I don't understand why people would be so reckless. But
I definitely understand how it happens, but I just
I feel like that's just
crazy.
That's so dangerous. Like if you're in the middle of nowhere, like when I say middle of nowhere, I'm thinking like in Stranger Things when they're out in that like random used car lot where what was Will's brother's name? You know, okay, so the older brother.
Wow, this is getting pretty complex of a
Liz with the pizza
here.
guy, and they were like shooting or hitting golf balls in the middle of nowhere. Like you're shooting stuff into a bunch of like cars that aren't being used, and there are no people around.
Yeah,
go for it. If you're shooting it not towards each other, that's fine. Go for it. But I feel like that's never when they do it. That's not when they shoot fireworks off. They shoot it towards civilization.
Do you remember the party? I forget what holiday it was, and maybe it was 4th of July, but when we were at Barry's house and we had the hula hoops out.
Yes.
What holiday was that? Was it 4th of July?
I believe so. I want to say it was 4th of July. I know it was in the summer.
Yeah. Anyway,
I think
that was the
4th
first
of
time you
July.
met Sydney, probably, right?
I think so, but I don't remember talking to her much.
I don't know if they were dating at that time.
They weren't.
But that was fun. We were all like Sydney and Barry's other friends had hula hoops because that's what they're into, and
I just remember the one like lit up or.
I learned that I cannot hula hoop that well anymore.
I cannot hula hoop either. I
But
used to be very good.
It is super fun when you have somebody toss the hula hoop up and you try and shoot your firework through it.
Yeah, shoot like was it bottle rocket or something?
It wasn't a bottle rocket. I don't know how to describe it, but it's just like a small, thin cylinder that just shoots out little puffs of like colors.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about, but I was also there.
It was just like poof. Like it wasn't like a explosive acceleration type of rocket.
Just like a puh.
Yeah, it was just like a puh. And then, you get like a blue little ball or a green little ball flies out the end. Anyway. All right. We've talked about 4th of July enough.
We've talked about fireworks enough.
Yeah. Other holidays, like the big holidays, who hosted, who... Well, I know for
us, it was always weird. It was difficult because so growing up, in case I haven't mentioned it before, in case anyone's listening that doesn't know me and hasn't heard of my struggles growing up, and it wasn't really a struggle. It was just trying to split our time. So grew up in Maryland. That's where my mom's family is, like her brother, my cousins, my grandparents. And then my dad's side of the family. I feel like every time I say this, it sounds like my parents are split. My parents aren't split. They're happily married for 30 years. 30 years, yes. But my dad grew up in Pittsburgh, so all of my aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, for the most part, all live out in Pittsburgh. So my dad's side of the family, that extended family is out in Pittsburgh. And for Easter, we would always go up to Pittsburgh. Mostly, I think, because my mom was not raised Catholic. She went through the whole RCIA thing when she was getting married to my dad. So we always would go up to Pittsburgh and we'd have... What are you laughing at?
Just the yawning and
oh my
stuff
gosh,
that always happens when you're talking.
Whatever.
I think you just sitting in this
Whatever.
room. I think you just sitting in this room makes you want to go to sleep or something.
It just relaxes me and gets me all nice and cozy. It's my library.
All right, go on.
But so for Easter, we'd always drive up on, let's see, Catholic school always gave us off on Good Friday, I think it was. It was either Holy Thursday or Good Friday. We would drive up. We'd spend all of Easter weekend. We'd drive back Easter Monday. But we would do the whole go to church, come back, look for the Easter baskets, and then we'd have an Easter egg hunt with all of my cousins. And so we kind of went through all of that for Easter. For Thanksgiving, for the longest time, we'd have Thanksgiving. Well, it started with we'd switch off every year. Thanksgiving dinner with one side of the family, Thanksgiving dessert with the other side of the family. So we would either have dinner at Aunt Judy's house, because that's where Grammy and Pappy would come down and stay. Sometimes Dave would bring Chucky down. Sometimes Rich and the girls would come down. But so we'd either have dinner or dessert there, and the other one we would do at Grandma's house. So if we had dinner at Judy's, we'd have dessert at Grandma and Pa's. If we had dinner at Grandma and Pa's, we'd have dessert at Judy's. And then as we got older, it got to be more often than not dinner at Grandma and Pa's and then dessert at Judy's. And now we just don't do that anymore. And I don't know if it's because Grammy and Pappy don't come down or what.
Probably.
I don't.
It's hard to have dinner in one place and then drive 6 hours to get the dessert.
Very funny. No,
Silly guy over here.
So funny. No, so I don't know when they stopped coming down. I don't know if it was because of COVID or if it was pre-COVID, but we just got to only doing Thanksgiving with Grandma and Pa. And then Christmas, it was kind of the same thing. Half the time on Christmas Day, we would be up for presents at like 8 or 9 o'clock. We'd open all the gifts, and then by 10:30, 11 o'clock, we're all packed in the car driving up to Pittsburgh on Christmas Day. And Grandma and Pa would come over for us to open our gifts. And then on the years that we didn't do that, like I said, we like switched off every other year. We would have Christmas morning at our house, and we'd actually be able to like relax and not be packed up in the car by 10:30. Could play with our toys and see the clothes and everything. And then around 2 o'clock, we'd head over to my grandma's house, and Grandma would host Christmas dinner. We'd see my cousins, aunts, and uncles and everything. And then the next morning on the 26th, we would drive up to Pittsburgh, and we'd spend a couple days there.
This is so much more complicated than our family.
Now I hope you hearing this and you kind of trying to like seeing how we tried to do so much. I hope that helps you understand why I want to host Christmas, especially when we have our own family. I don't want it to have to be so much back and forth, at least until we have like as of right now, your brother's not married. My brothers aren't married. So as of right now, we're kind of like I don't want to say the central hub, but we don't have any additional like families that are coming in for like a big Christmas celebration. So I want to try and like be the hub while we can, so that way when we do have kids, we're not carting them halfway around the country trying to see everyone. See my grandparents and then my parents down in Maryland and your parents and grandparents down the street. And while we're in Maryland, do we see your family that's down in Maryland? Because that's an additional hour drive. I feel like that's just so much back and forth, and I don't want to put that kind of stress and pressure on our future kiddos.
I was so impatient as a kid. There's no way that I'm opening up my toys and then getting into a car to leave for days and then coming back to play with my toys. There's just no way that would work. I mean, as a kid, I would complain so much about having to go to mass on Christmas morning and then, miss out on that hour of being able to play with my new toys. So there was no way I was getting pulled away from the house for more than that hour.
Oh yeah, and we always had to pick. So like we would go through the clothes, and this was when we were older. I can't remember distinctly when I was younger. But I would go through all of my clothes and be like, okay, what do I want to take to wear? What do I want to wear up? Do I want to wear my new clothes? Do I just want to wear whatever I have in my closet or in the drawers that I already have? What about games? Do we take games that we've already played and we know we like and we know how to play, or do we take new games up? Do we want to take the puzzle to go up? Because if we take the puzzle up to Pittsburgh, then all of our cousins are going to be put together. Do we want to have that family time, or is this a puzzle that I want to try and tackle myself versus doing it with everyone else?
This is so complicated.
I know. It's a lot.
Christmas for my family was pretty easy. So, starting on Christmas Eve, we always had a Christmas Eve party with my dad's family. It was a mix of between my parents' house. So every other year we switched off. It was either at my parents' house or it was at Barb's house. And, that was just a time for all of my dad's side of the family to get together.
So it was only ever at your parents' house or Barb's house?
Yeah.
It was never at Bob's or Bill's or... Cause
now that I say that, I feel like...
I know pre-COVID we went to one at...
Bill's house.
Was that at Uncle Bill's house? I was going to say, I know it was in Emmaus, and that's about all I got.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, for the most part, though, It was every other year and between my parents' house and Barb's house. So we did that party, and then we came home around midnight, and then we go to sleep, wake up in the morning, we get Christmas just with our immediate family, and then after we're done opening all the toys and everything, and me being so annoying as a kid...
I can't wait to see those videos.
Yeah, we'll get into that later. If we do play those videos, I think that we should watch them so you could prepare for how our future children are going to be super annoying.
Oh, I would love to watch them. I've only heard about them.
Yeah, so we'll watch one of mine, and then maybe I'll take a few reels of it and put it on our Instagram.
Okay. Well, depending on how bad they are, you don't want to torture our followers. Okay.
Anyway, so we would wake up, we would open gifts underneath the tree, just our immediate family. And then we would go to mass, which me and Barry would always complain about.
I feel like you still would complain about.
I just don't.
If you had to go.
I just don't go anymore, typically. But whatever. To each their own. And then we come home from mass, and usually it's followed by cleaning because we're going to have my mom's side of the family over for a Christmas party. So typically my responsibilities were to vacuum the basement and vacuum the basement stairs.
The stairs too?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Which I would complain about.
Which is fair.
Anyway. And then, 4 o'clock or so, The my mom's side of the family comes over, and we just party it up. That's about it for our Christmas.
What about Easter and Thanksgiving?
Easter, pretty much all of the hosting kind of falls on my mom, just because she's the only volunteer.
I was gonna say, is that by choice or?
I think it's really because she's the only volunteer. Nobody else is really raising their hand to get in that line. So she usually hosts something. And I think, one of the main reasons is probably just to have everyone around with Mom and Pop-Up. But anyway, yeah, I mean, generally all of our parties, it's usually my mom makes some type of meal that is easily servable to multiple people. So things like meatballs or
casseroles. I know she's done stuff
casseroles.
like that.
Sometimes she'll get like sliced meat or something from like a local food place.
Yeah, the local deli.
Yeah, there's like a deli that like does different types of catered entrees and stuff, but that's typically rare. She usually makes most of the meals. And yeah, and I think for Easter it's not as much of the extended family. It's mom, pop up and mom's siblings and just the kids and sometimes Mike and possibly Jen, depending on what Jen's doing. Like I feel like the invite's always there, but it's kind of just whoever shows up. That's for Easter. And then what other holiday did you say?
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving was different for recently. Aunt Mary used to have us over for Thanksgiving.
I remember going to Aunt Mary's. Do you remember? And I know exactly what you're gonna bring up.
Oh my gosh, that is the first thing. The first thing that hit my mind when you were like, okay. I knew exactly what you were gonna bring up.
Story time. What was it? 2019, 2018? I think it was 2019.
It was the first Thanksgiving that you were invited to.
Yes, it was, and I think it was the one that was like just before COVID. I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It was the first Thanksgiving I was invited to, and I remember we went, and it was very different from the Thanksgivings that I was used to. So we drove over to Jersey, and we got to her house and everything, and I was like, you know what, do you want me to make something? They're like, no, don't make anything. And I was like, well, I can bring like a dessert, because in the past I had made pecan pie cheesecake. It was like cheesecake on the bottom and pecan pie on top, and it was really good. And I was like, I'm gonna do that again, but I haven't made it in a while. As I'm making it, I get partway through the pecan filling and I realize I left out something. I went through like 2 or 3 batches of just trying to make this thing without screwing it up. The one I ended up taking, I still screwed up, but I was like, you know what? It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Spoiler alert, it was not fine.
I mean, people were definitely nice about it.
Your family was so kind about it. Y'all, this pie was so liquidy. I don't even want to say watery.
It was just like a huge puddle in a pie tin.
And your aunts were so kind. They're like, oh, it tastes so good. And I was like, I am mortified because I can bake relatively well. At least I think so. But that was hands down one of the worst things I've ever made. And your family took it with stride. And I think Aunt Eileen even had a second piece. And I was like, you really don't have to, I promise. And she's like, no, it's good.
That was very interesting for me because I've eaten plenty of your other baking. And I've never seen such a baking mistake,
snafu.
I guess. Yeah. And then the other thing that shocked me was that you brought it.
Well, it didn't seem like it was that, like, it seemed a little underset, but I didn't think it was going to be that bad. And then we cut into it.
And it was just
It
Like
just,
straight up
oh my
water.
gosh, it like just poured off of the cheesecake part. I was mortified. I was like, I cannot believe I brought this to this family, that they're welcoming me in, and this is what I bring to them.
I wonder if my mom remembers that cheesecake. I wonder.
Oh, I
Man,
can
I
almost
have to ask.
I can almost guarantee you. I don't know if your mom does. I don't know if your mom had
Do
a
you know if
piece.
Barry was there?
Oh yeah, Barry was there. I remember Barry was there because Barry and Eileen started talking about like different cities, and for some reason, don't ask me why, I feel like they started talking about a very large rubber duck in some river, like a massively oversized rubber duck. But yes, Barry was there.
That is very specific conversation. I think there is like some rubber duck festival though, where they release a ton of rubber ducks. I
I
don't
th-
know if it's in the Schuylkill or if it's some other city.
I think Pittsburgh does it on Saint. Listen, I could be very wrong, and if I am, I'm sorry to everyone. What are you looking for?
I was looking for my phone to look it up, but
Do
it
you want
turns out we're filming with my phone.
Do you want
So
my phone?
no, it's okay.
I'll look it up for you. But I feel like in Pittsburgh they put a massive rubber duck in it's either the Allegheny or the Monongahela. I'm not sure which.
Anyway, yeah. So that's our Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving's typically a little more, I would say, formal. Like we show up to Aunt Mary's, everybody kind of sits down and eats like finger foods while watching a little bit of TV and conversing. And then we shut everything off and all sit around the table. And it's like kind of more formal as opposed to most of our holiday parties as a family, or just you kind of do whatever you want. Dinner is put out, you eat whenever you want to. We usually have like games of pool or billiards or whatever you want to call it, and darts and stuff like that. Did you find it?
So I found that they do have a rubber duck festival. It looks like in Erie, Pennsylvania, which is it's up near Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
But
interesting.
anyway, I had a question about so you've experienced my family holidays. And I don't know if I've ever talked to you about this, but when we went to Aunt Mary's Thanksgiving, it was, I don't want to say shocking, but it was definitely not what I expected, because our Thanksgiving at my grandparents' house, it's organized chaos, to put it lightly. My grandparents don't have a massive house. So when we get there, my mom and I hop in the kitchen to help my grandma with cooking. Usually my granddad's in there too. And then to get through the kitchen to the back porch, that's where all of the drinks and everything are. It's usually on the back porch. So we're all just kind of doing like a little dance around each other, and mom and I are helping finish cooking and getting like the rolls together, making sure everything's in bowls and serving platters so we can put it out on the table. And so I'm so used to like jumping in and having my hands on everything, and your mom's kind of allowed me to jump in and help do that. When we went to Aunt Mary's, she had everything done and she's like, "No, we're just waiting on the turkey. That's it."
Yeah, Mary's got her shit together.
And we sat there and we talked, and I felt so awkward, not like helping plate things, helping get things together, getting like it threw me off. It really
Aunt
threw
Mary
me
takes pride in her Thanksgiving, and she gets everything pretty much prepared before anyone shows up, so you can sit there and socialize before you eat dinner.
It really threw me for a loop. I distinctly remember sitting there because she brought some chairs in and we were all sitting around. She had snacks out on her coffee table, and I was like, what is going on? I don't understand.
Yeah.
It was much more socialized based versus us sitting, and because we usually just talk over each other at dinner instead, as I know you're aware. But
Well, you guys eat so damn fast that you can sit there and talk. Like, when I sit down to eat a meal with your family, I'm usually like a quarter to a halfway through my food before, like, once you guys are starting to finish up.
I'm
So
sorry.
no, it's fine. It's just you guys eat so fast. So the eating part when you guys are sitting at the table is so short. So then you could sit there and talk. But I guess we do have conversations at the table too,
But then,
during our parties and stuff.
yeah, but it just,
Just drags out the eating longer.
mm-hmm. And I'm not used to that. You, you talk, you eat, you talk.
Yeah, we love the mix in conversation while we're eating.
Yeah, which is always so awkward because when I'm with your family, I'll finish my food and then I'll chirp into the conversation. And your mom will look at me and be like, "Oh, do you need more? Like, go ahead and get seconds." And I'm like, "No, I honestly don't need more. I need to give my body time to actually like understand what I just put into it."
Yeah,
But
I,
it's strange, and I never realize it or think about it until your mom's like, "Oh, go get seconds." Meanwhile, she's taking her like first or second bite, and I was like, "I did it again."
yeah, that's classic for your style of eating.
It is, but it helps during work.
Yeah. So, oh, is there any other holidays that we need to cover? I don't really know. I didn't really expect this one to be a long one, but
Are there any? First of all, did you guys hunt for Easter baskets?
we did as kids.
Did you ever do an Easter egg hunt?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know. Listen, I don't know because I know, I mean, I don't know when Shane and Jimmy and all them moved down to Maryland, if that was,
They always came up for Christmas.
okay. Because, you know what I mean?
I don't know
Like,
if they were there for Easter. Probably not.
well, because I know they were, I think they're your cousins that are mostly closest in age,
Well,
question mark?
Jen's kids, Vicky is very close to Barry's age.
That's true.
And Debbie was very close to my age. And they used to live right down the street from
Okay.
us. So
Yeah.
that's like the family that we mainly spent time with
Okay.
when it came to like family holidays that weren't Christmas or.
I never think of that just because they don't live down the street now. You know what I mean?
People move, things change,
Ugh. I'm not okay with that. People can't move ever.
I'm sure your mom was, thinking that, and when you told her that you were going to move the PA, she's like, "No."
I think she slowly accepted that thought when I was at Immaculata, and then when I stayed up here for Jefferson, I think she slowly accepted the thought that I would move to Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just don't think of having Vicky and Debbie around like when you guys were growing up, just because now they're not close.
Yeah, we were all so
So-
close growing up. I mean, until probably I was 16 or 17.
Okay.
They lived very close by, and like every family holiday, we were with them probably.
Oh, I never knew that.
Maybe a little less around when I was like 16 or so, but like, childhood years for sure.
Yeah. But are there any holiday traditions that you wanted to do growing up that you didn't get a chance to and want to incorporate into our family moving forward? Or is there anything you guys did that you don't want to do going forward?
I don't think so, but I think that one is going to be biased to what they were raised doing. But I definitely don't want to do what you guys did as kids.
I don't either, which is why.
Specifically referring to the like traveling super long times on holidays. Though the difference between going from Maryland to Pittsburgh or going from PA to Maryland is so much different, because 2 hours is like way less than 6 or whatever it takes to get to Pittsburgh.
Depending on if you have tolls on or not.
Yeah, true. So, it's not that bad to travel down to Maryland, but ideally when we have kids, I'd like for them to be able to play with their toys and stuff before we have to travel anywhere.
I
If we
also
have to travel anywhere.
I also motioned that we don't go to mass on Christmas Day. So growing up, we always did mass the night before. We always did Christmas Eve mass, and we always did the children's mass, which was at like maybe 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So that way, it was like 3 or 3:30. So that way, by the time we got out, we could all just pile in the car and go out to dinner. That was one tradition that we had on Christmas Eve that I really liked.
We had one Christmas Eve where we went to the midnight mass
God bless you.
after the Christmas Eve party, and it was old. I was old enough to drink at that time, and we came in a little sloppy. It was pretty sweet. That was probably the best, that was probably the best Christmas mass that I've gone to.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you were buzzed, not off the church wine.
Yeah, not off the church wine. Nope.
So, all right. Well, I think that's all I got. And I know as time goes on, we'll probably come up with our own traditions, like matching family pajamas.
That's true. You didn't even mention that, and we
That's
were
becau-
talking this whole time.
That's because we never did it growing up. But okay, so growing up, me and my brothers were the absolute worst to my mom. Let me tell you, my mom's a saint for putting up with everything that she has put up with and still deals with. But whenever she wanted us to wear matching outfits for anything, even if it was just pictures or something, we would put up the biggest fight. We just wouldn't do it. We were the worst. So, like, as I got older, I thought the matching Christmas pajamas was cute. So that's why when we started dating, we got matching Christmas pajamas. And then this past year, my mom had mentioned something about doing matching Christmas pajamas. And I was like, don't worry about it, because I already got everyone matching pajama pants. She's like, perfect. I'm going to get everyone matching pajama tops. So we did that. Everyone got a pair of socks. And then my grandma even said, oh, I think I'm going to get everyone matching pajamas. And we're like, Grandma, please don't. Please don't. But we always thought it was cute. And now that I'm older and can appreciate it, I think that's something I'm going to have our kids do. But I've seen stuff online where it's like they get to open one present the night before, and it's like Christmas pajamas and like a Christmas movie or a Christmas book or something else. It's some activity you guys can do the night of Christmas Eve.
A Christmas book. That sounds terrible.
I had a Christmas book that I loved. It was I wish my mom still had it. You know what? She honestly might. I think I'm going to have to text her about it. But it was like a children's book kind of thing. It had gold edges on all the pages and a bunch of Christmas stories in it, and it was interspersed with like Christmas songs, and it had pictures and everything. I loved that book.
You could not get me to read anything as a child. I mean, I even had times where my mom would make me sit in my room and read, and I would sit there and do nothing and then claim I read because I hated reading that bad.
Did your mom quiz you on the book afterwards to find out if you read?
There was this whole debacle at the beach about that.
I have heard about the debacle at the beach.
Yeah, but also, like, my mom would do the same. Like, so that was with Aunt Barb, but my mom would do the same thing with quizzing me and everything, and it was terrible. It's terrible.
My brother just would not read. I don't know if he just hated it, if he didn't have the attention span, what it was, but he would not read. So whenever he had to read for school, and I'm talking like this is up through, I want to say it was up through either middle school or high school, but whenever he had to, like, you would get quizzes on whatever chapters, my mom would sit there and read it with him.
Yeah, I don't think, man, thinking back to my high school days or high school and below, I think that there was only one book that I had to read that I actually read cover to cover.
Yeah, no,
I read The Lovely Bones.
That was a good book.
It was a good book. And that is the only thing that was good enough to keep my attention span.
See, this makes me happy because you read The Lovely Bones and you liked The Silent Patient. So I'm getting an idea of what kind of books you like. Am I going to make you read or buy you books? No, because I got a whole library of those kind of books here.
I'm sure you do.
And now that you have your diploma, you have more time to read.
I have other things I got to do.
Yeah?
Yeah, very important things.
Like what?
Video games.
But yeah. But no, you're talking to the girl who apparently when I was growing up, I used to carry around like a little children's dictionary with me to read.
That is just so typical.
I think my mom used to get Dr. Seuss books in the mail
Oof.
and read them to me.
Don't say that.
Okay, this
Gonna
was
get
back.
canceled.
This was
Cancel
back.
pod. Hashtag cancel pod.
This was back before they were banned books.
Yeah.
But yes, the first book I read by myself was Go Dog Go by Dr. Seuss.
Nice.
So, all right. Well, now that we've gone way off topic, I think it's time we wrap this up.
Yeah. So, if you have any recipe or cocktail recipe suggestions, please email them to us at diariesofworkingcouple@gmail.com, or feel free to direct message it to us on Instagram at Diaries of a Working Couple.
And until next time, we hope you enjoy whatever reels we put out. And
If we put out any. Because I've been very lazy and I have yet to edit any. So.
Same. Sorry, guys. My Instagram skills have been lacking because I do the art and I get it all ready. And then Monday rolls around when everything drops. And I'm like, I really don't feel like making a post. So I'm working on fixing that so I can schedule posts. But I just got to do a little research into it. But absolutely check out our other episodes if you haven't already. And we'll catch you next time.
All right. See ya.
Bye, guys.